I'm back with yet another video that tries to explain what are AI agents. And I think you've seen gazillions of these videos. And as a matter of fact, I think I have recorded a couple of them by now. I don't think any new definition is needed, to be honest. I think the definitions that we had decades ago are more than enough and still the same story. The keyword here, the couple of keywords that I want to emphasize. Number one, agents are systems. Agent is not a thing. Agent is not a model. Agent is not a bunch of tools or framework. Agent is a system that is using the intelligence of the reasoning core that it has, which could be LLM, which in most cases are LLM, to make sure that it sees what is happening in the environment based on the constraints that it has. It remembers stuff and it acts, and it loops over and it acts again and acts again and acts again. This is what is an agent, and to me, the definition that we had was the same, right? Like even in Russ and Norvig book that I really loved, the first book that I've read about artificial intelligence decades and decades ago, the definition was exactly the same. Now, and the reason that I'm re-recording the video is because things are now much more clear, and I want to talk about all the different components inside that definition. The first component is reasoning core. Reasoning core doesn't necessarily need to be an LLM or foundation model. I think, don't kill me, because I think this come across as a shock, reasoning core partially can be completely deterministic as well. So meaning that it could be code that people are writing. It's all about doing reasoning, right? You can even use fuzzy logic in that part. But of course, LLMs are the best one today. The second part is tool. Tools are the most interesting parts of these whole frameworks out there. Building the right tool is one of the key ways that people get the agents to actually work. If you define a good tool, if you define a tool that is consumable for the reasoning core as opposed to a human, right? Has right definition, it works the way that you expect, has nice names, and all those kind of things, makes a huge difference about the functionality of these things. 3 is memory. An agent without a good memory is useless. If you look at OpenClaw, that's taking the world by some sort of storm today, and I probably will record a video talking about OpenClaw using my own OpenClaw agent, right? I think it's all about the way that framework is handling memory. Memory has different flavors. We will talk about it. And of the fourth element, which is very, very important, is orchestration. I think we don't have that many variants of orchestration, but orchestration is the way that you use the reasoning core to interact with the different elements inside the system. How do you use the reasoning core to plan? How do you decide what tools to use to act? What do you observe, or when do you observe when it comes to orchestration? And when do you reflect about the observation and what's the result of that? Everything needs to be in a constraint boundary, and constraint boundary is often mostly defined by things like guardrail, but there is a bit more than guardrail here. The reasoning core doesn't need to necessarily be LLM. I think there are a lot of good foundation models here. And as a matter of fact, I think a good agentic system can have more than one type of reasoning core. It can use a very large language model. It can also use a small language model, and that's where the orchestration actually becomes very relevant. What LLM you use for what kind of things, or what model you use, or what deterministic piece of Python code you use, right? A tool is very important. As I said, you need to think about an agentic tool a bit different than just an API or a tool that is designed for human. I think that's where things get very beautiful in next couple of months, where people decide to build tools just for agents, right? Like I think websites will be equipped with tools for agents to get the right information out of them. That's where things will get very important. You need to define, manage identity here. You need to think about failure as well, and you need to define it in a way that your orchestration or your reasoning logic can select it correctly. Memory People are talking about 3 types of memory. I think there will be more memories in future, right? Like there are memories that are much larger. If you think about enterprise, it would be corporate memory, which is like everything here. You have short-term memory, you have long-term memory, which by now most things are very well established there, and you have episodic memory, right, which talks about traces of the past run and those kind of things. And again, without memory, there is no such a thing as an agent. There is loop. I'm sure that there are different orchestration loops, and but this is the most common one: plan, act, observe, and reflect. And I guess there are reasons to change these kind of loops, but for most intents and purposes, this is a very, very interesting loop. I think it resembles the way that human actually interact with their world. Constraints or the boundary, the most important part here is guardrail. Look, I think without guardrails, you don't have a production system. You need to realize, when you talk about guardrails, you talk about input guardrails. When what happens when something happens in the environment could be people typing stuff, and the output guardrails. What type of guardrails do we have for the actions that the agents has in the environment? I think this is very, very complex topic, and it doesn't necessarily is just having a bunch of nice prompts. You really need to have define its own code or have their own models. Like each of these guardrails, they can have their own models, right? And you need to think about a lot of stuff here, right? Like how do we make sure that this system, if it's an agentic coding system, right, like it doesn't break the whole product that you have. There are technical discussions around guardrail. Maybe one day I will talk about them. But yeah, that's about what I wanted to share. Just wanted to talk about agents and the components there. Thank you very much for listening to me.